Hello, everyone. My name is Mirna. On behalf of the Mindalia TV team, welcome to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather daily to see the lectures and interviews organized by Mindalia TV. Today, with us, we have Dan Blanchard. Dan is a speaker, a published author, and an educator, and he is going to be having a very constructive conversation with Mr. Jeffrey Grande. But before starting with them, we want to remind you that Mindalia's mission is to share information that can help raise the level of consciousness in the world. You can help us by subscribing to our channel, leaving us a positive comment on this video, or sharing it with someone that you know that can benefit of the content that we're going to be talking here today. Also, if we are live streaming, we are going to have an active chat. It's a screen you're going to see on my side here or under the video. If you're following us from a smartphone, you're welcome to interact with us. We also want you to collaborate with Mindalia with your own valuable content. For that, you can go to our website. On the top, you are going to be finding a link says Collaborate with Mindalia. You can fill that link out, and our technical team can contact you. And you can collaborate with us in English, Portuguese, or Spanish. We have Mindalia Televisión, Mindalia Televisao, and Mindalia TV English. Follow us in our different platforms and channels, Facebook pages, Instagram accounts. With that, you are not only helping us accomplish our goal, which is just share information that can help raise the level of consciousness in the planet, but you also keep yourself updated with the amazing information we are sharing there on a daily basis. I'm not delaying this any further. I have the very great pleasure of now introducing Dan Blanchard and Mr. Jeff Grande. Gentlemen, welcome to Mindalia live streaming. The screen is all yours.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And hey, Jeff, how are you, buddy?
Good, Danny. Good to see
Great.
you.
Let me tell the audience about you, Jeff. Hey, everybody, believe it or not, my buddy Jeff Grande here is actually a University of Georgia football player. That's right. He was the real deal. After football, he got into education, and he was the former Hartford high school teacher and assistant principal. And believe it or not, his former students tried to get him to go on the Oprah show as the world's best teacher. How cool is that? And it gets even cooler, everybody. Jeff actually sits there on like Friday nights, I think, and he hangs out at Borders so that his old students can come and see him and chat with him, talk about the old days, talk about what they're up to now. I mean, I can't think of another retired teacher that's doing that. That's just so impressive, Jeff. And if you don't mind me putting one more feather in your cap, Jeff has a great TV show he does with Nutmeg Television called Journeys with Jeff. It's out of Connecticut. It's on Nutmeg Television. I've been on it, and he's had some wonderful guests on it. It's a great, great show. Jeff, I know I'm just scratching the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg of who you really are. Would you like to share with our audience a little bit more, maybe something I missed?
Well, I can only respond to your introduction with 2 words. Aw, shucks.
Yes.
That's a very stellar introduction.
Well, you're welcome, Jeff. You're every bit deserving of it.
It's good to be here. Good to be here, Danny. What can we what can I help talk to you about today?
I love your TV show of Journeys with Jeff. You talk a lot about compassion, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that tonight. How did you get onto this subject of compassion, and why is it so important to you?
Well, I guess it's probably been an evolving thing. It is, as life is for most people. I taught in Hartford, the inner city, for 35 years. I was born and raised in West Hartford, which is a very affluent Hartford suburb. And as a public school teacher in the inner city, I saw kids coming from environments being the products of poverty and living in difficult conditions, and I began to realize over the years that becoming a Buddhist also. I was born and raised Jewish, but I became a Buddhist in my later years, and the basic tenet of Buddhism, as you know, is compassion. And I just couldn't help but notice over the years that so many people, and myself included, had a tendency to be judgmental of other people, judgmental of an individual person, or judgmental of a group of people, a whole group. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I began to realize, I don't really know what that person has been through. I have not had that person's experience. And I
Yep.
caught myself passing judgment on a person that I didn't even know. I didn't know anything about their journey, and I thought that which is the overriding objective of my show, as I told you when you were on my show,
Yep.
is that if I can take the viewer, if we can get the viewers who are watching to take a step away from being judgmental and a
Yep.
step a little bit closer to being compassionate, that would be a positive contribution to the world, where we have a species of animal that we are, infused with spirituality, infused with love,
Yep.
infused with compassion, and that we can make, that we have the ability, we have the tools as human beings, we have the reason, we have the tools to make a better world, and I think we need to try to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And if I could jump in, Jeff, on what you're saying, I got a funny little story I think that goes right with it. And years ago, my mom passed away, and I had to write the eulogy. And my mom, in my eyes, was my mom. She didn't have a life before me. You know what I mean? So as I was writing the eulogy, I was talking to my older siblings and my dad and my aunts and all this. And I actually found out that my mom was a trapezist artist, and she used to sail high above the ground doing flips and twists and all those things. And then I found out that her and her sister used to run behind the barn and sneak cigarettes, so grandma and grandpa wouldn't catch her, and they'd take off to New York City for the day. And I was like, wow, I never knew my mom was adventurous. I always thought she was this one type of person, solid, loving, there for me, but not adventurous, not at all. So it just goes to show you how wrong I was of trying judging my mom, of thinking that she was who she was and she didn't have another life. I was so wrong about her.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next thing I want to bring is that I know you worked for a lot of years as an educator in Connecticut's capital city in Hartford. It's an urban school district. It's inner city. It's a very difficult place to work. Most people who have not been in that realm, that environment, will never understand, Jeff, how difficult guys like me and you have it working in any city. There's no picnic there at all. And for many people, they turn bitter after years of being in that bitter, tough environment, and they start becoming very judgmental. I mean, how did you not keep yourself from going down that road and save your compassion and save your judgments for something else, not them?
That's a good question. That's a tough one to answer. I don't know whether I just had that in me or whether it was through experience, through my own experiences, seeing how these kids, and I think part of it is my own childhood. Um, my father, when I was growing, my father was an alcoholic, and I had a tough
Yep.
time with my studies. And I
Yep.
realized that a lot of these kids coming from the homes they come from, with the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the neglect, the poor
Yep.
nutrition, the impoverished environment. A lot of these kids come to school, and there's no wonder that they can't come into a classroom and focus their attention. And
Yeah.
I began to see that, and I began to I had to have this internal dialogue with myself. And I would say, Jeff, before you pass judgment on this person, you've got to realize what they've been through. And it was through the social worker and the different staff members at school. And I would go into some kids, into their files, and I would see that this kid that I'd been trying to teach and come down hard on, was a victim of certain abuses. And
Yeah.
what I became very cynical about was, and angry about, was not these kids and not their behavior. I became very critical and disappointed in the system. The
Yes.
system allowed these kids to fall through the cracks And I'm wondering, where is the society? Where is the collective? Where are the leaders of our country who allow these kind of conditions to exist, where these kids grow up and they have all these problems? Where are our values? Where is our love for these kids? And over the years, it wasn't there to the degree that I thought that it should be. And as far as my kids are concerned, the kids that I had, I would I would tell them, look, as long as I'm your teacher, and I see you doing something that's not in your interest, I'm going to be all over you. I'm going to be in your face.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Well, you don't, and I didn't make promises that I couldn't keep.
Yep.
You have to, the kids are very astute, and they know whether they're cared about. They know whether that's an authoritarian personality that just is
Mhm.
coming down on them, or whether this person actually cares about them. And my kids found out very quickly because of I went to their homes, I got involved in their lives,
Yep.
and they really began to realize, holy mackerel, Mr. Grande, he really cares about me. And if a person can feel that another person cares about them, that will change their behavior. I'll tell you two quick little anecdotes. One of
Yep.
them that I like to share with people, in 1965, this has been my guiding light as being an educator. Martin Luther King went to an educational conference in 1965, and he's sitting in an auditorium, 2,000 educators, teachers and administrators and all this stuff. And across the front of the stage was this big giant banner. And the banner said, first, teach them to read.
Yeah.
And Martin Luther King turned to the person next to him and pointed up at the banner, and he said, what that should say? It should say, first, teach them to believe in themselves.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you
Yep.
can create an atmosphere, which is what I tried to do,
Yep.
I consciously tried to create a classroom atmosphere where I could get these kids to believe in themselves. Because once your self-esteem goes up, once you believe that you have and in yourself and you are empowered, you can do anything. You can accomplish anything. But you've got to believe in yourself.
I love, Jeff, how you said that you consciously created that classroom atmosphere. Some people might call it a climate, but I've always said to teachers and educators is that you have to create that atmosphere that you're talking about. And if you don't, somebody else will create it. Maybe the students will create it, but it won't be an optimal atmosphere or climate. And some teachers try to say, oh, well, that's not my job. My job is to teach math or whatever. And I'm like, listen, again, if you don't create the optimal atmosphere, climate of relationships matter, strong bonds with your students, then somebody else is going to create a less optimal atmosphere in your room. And you can't go down that road because that's a long, long year. And there's going to be a lot of lost learning if you go down that road. Wouldn't you agree,
That,
Jeff?
that's a very, very good point. And you know what I used to tell people who would throw up their hands and say, "Hey, look, I'm just one person. What can I do? I'm just an insignificant speck of dust in the wind."
Mm,
I used to tell the student teachers who would come to my classes, I would tell the staff members with whom I used to teach, my colleagues and my fellow educators, I would say, you know something? You're absolutely right. We are all just a grain of sand on a long, long, long beach. But there's one thing that you need to keep in mind that is also very true. In the life of a kid, one grain of sand put on one side of that scale that hangs in the balance of this kid's life, that one grain of sand can make all of the difference in the world. So, yes,
yeah.
you are minute, you are insignificant, but at the same time, you can be all of the world, all the change, meaning all of the love in the world for this kid or these kids.
You're so right, Jeff. Now, I remember years ago, me and a bunch of my buddies were having a conversation similar to this. And I was a lot younger, not quite as wise in the ways of the world that I am now after being an urban educator for over 20 years. And when this conversation was going back and forth, some of them said we were young men, maybe just out of college, and some of them said, "Well, you know what? Why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps like Dan Blanchard did?" And there's arguments going back and forth and back and forth. And I remember butting in and I said, "Listen, guys, yes, I did pull myself up by my bootstraps against all odds." I said, "But it's not quite that simple. There's more to it."
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. And I do get that. I hear that from some people. Um, Thankfully, fewer and fewer people have that notion, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But I tell people, and I'll tell you, and I'll tell the people who are watching this, that in my experience, some of the most wonderful, hardworking, responsible, loving, honest, beautiful human beings that I've ever met were poor people who live in the inner city. And at the same time, some of the greediest, calloused, insensitive, uh, lazy, irresponsible people that I've ever met have been very, very wealthy people. And you take responsibility. You got to take responsibility for not only for yourself, to take responsibility. The question in the Bible: am I my brother's keeper? Well, everything in the Bible that follows from that question, Dan, concludes, yes, you are your brother's keeper. And what Jesus said, I'm not a Christian, but I love a lot of what Jesus said. What you do to the least of me, you do to me. And I think we all have a responsibility to each other, to other people, to somebody born on the other side of the world who we'll never even see.
Yep.
We have a responsibility to, as the Bible says, be stewards of the earth. Don't rape it, don't pollute it, don't ravage it, but take care of it. Take care of Mother Nature.
Yes.
Well, I think we're fall very short on that. I know we're getting short on time, but I did want to share with you something that my mother told me that was very meaningful to me that I'll share with you and the viewers.
Okay.
And she said, Jeff, as you go through life, be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people.
Wow. That's powerful. I love that.
You don't have to get any more complicated than that. It's not rocket science. All it is just look in your heart, look in your mind, look in your soul, and try to cultivate. If you agree that love is better than hate, if you agree that inclusiveness is better than exclusiveness, if you agree that sharing is better than greed, if you agree that those are better qualities that do two things, try to work on it in your own self, take that inner voyage and try to improve your own self, and then try to be the change in the world that you want to see in everybody.
Yeah. Wise words from Gandhi. And I guess I can close this off with saying Jeff Grande for President 2020. I would love to see those values trickling down to everybody. I mean, what a better world this would be, Jeff, if more people held their judgment, had compassion, maybe started watching your show, Journeys with Jeff, a lot more, because I think they'd get that message a lot more in their life from you if they were watching you.
Well, if anybody out there who's watching is moved to contact me by email or call Mindalia or call Dan Blanchard, if there's anybody out there that wants to talk to me, that wants to compare notes or whatever, please, I invite you to get in touch with me. I'd love to talk to you.
So, Jeff, is there any last words of wisdom as we close up here?
Just be a beacon of light and love, and transform your life and transform the world.
Yeah, especially in these dark times, right? especially in these dark
Well,
times.
yes, yes, and these dark times are it's a challenge. You look at it as a challenge.
Yeah.
The Dalai Lama said, I take hope in the darkest of days, and I focused on the good days. I do not judge the universe. Don't judge the universe. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge other people, but be a change agent to make a better world, because that really is the ultimate purpose of our existence. That's why we're here, to make it a better world.
No doubt, Dalai Lama, a very wise man, and so are you, Jeff Grande.
Thank you.
Let's get Mirna back on the show to close us out.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, gentlemen. What a great pleasure having you. Thank you for allowing the Mandalia TV camera being a channel for your ideas. And thank you for sharing time with us. But before leaving, as usual, we want to ask you, please, where can our audience find you, Jeff?
They can find me at WHC TV in West Hartford, Connecticut. And my email is jeff.w.grande, Grande, at gmail.com. I'd be very happy to, to communicate with any of your listeners or viewers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. How about you, Mr. B, Dan Blanchard? Where can our audience find you?
All right, Mirna, thanks. Just Google Dan Blanchard, author, speaker, educator, whatever. You'll find me everywhere, all the social media channels. And definitely check me out on Amazon too, danblanchard.net, granddaddy6.com. I'll be there. I'll return your emails.
Thank you. Thank you again. And to our audience, of course, thank you. And until next time, bye bye.